another episode of Ride with Rice with Jennifer James, rice farmer, bean farmer, corn farmer, and sustainability guru for the rice industry. But what I want to tell us a little bit about your farm and where we are, where we're driving around.
We are in Northeast Arkansas, just a little bit south of a little town called Newport. And I farm with my dad and my husband. My dad's, I think this is like his 52nd, 53rd crop, somewhere in there. So he's kind of got a little experience doing this thing. We farm around 6,200 acres with normally, anywhere from probably about 2,000 acre rice on average most years. If that price would go up a lot higher, that would change later.
So tell me a little bit about, I said that you were one of the kind of sustainability gurus. Tell me a little bit about why you think that's so important. Why is sustainability such an important part of this whole agriculture?
Well, for my family to start with, I said my dad's been doing this a long time. I've got a 17-year-old son who's really interested in agriculture, and so sustaining our farm and keeping it, in good condition, which means keeping good, healthy soil and making sure we got plenty of good, clean water to use and irrigate with. And we live on our farm, so we sure want to keep the water clean and the soil healthy and the air clean and all that kind of good stuff so that we can produce a good, healthy rice crop, abundant rice crop way into the future, decades and decades from now.
So one of the things that we've talked about a little bit at USA Rice is that people don't really, civilians, people away from agriculture, right, who are more and more removed from agriculture, who don't understand kind of what goes into it, what goes into being sustainable. Can you talk a little bit about how you decide when a new sustainability practice is presented to you or becomes available to you, whether it's through the university or from a private company? How do you kind of decide what you're going to implement and what are some of the costs associated?
Well, we are very dependent on the University of Arkansas system and their research and extension program that coordinates with all the rice state universities that are doing other, rice research in those other states that grow rice. And so normally we will employ a practice that's been researched and proven on the research farms and in, larger scale programs as well that's recommended for our area by the University of Arkansas. Now, we got a lot of rice acres in Arkansas, so there may be some things that they may be doing a couple of hours south of here that may not fit in our operation. So we are selective and try to pay close attention to what's going on. And of course, economics has to have a role in that as well. We can't just spend a lot of money with no return at all. So it's a balancing act.
And what can you talk about what some of those costs might be, that people maybe don't understand if they want, their fair trade coffee or their sustainable rice? There's a cost involved in that.
Well, water conservation can be very expensive because we have to do a lot of land leveling. We grade the fields so that they have a certain slope to them, or they may be completely flat. We have a lot of zero grade fields, drilling wells or building tailwater recovery systems, reservoirs where we can, store water and reuse surface water. So all of those things are very, very capital intensive. It takes quite a bit of dollars per acre to employ those practices. So you want to be sure that you're going to be in business for a long term too. So that's important. It's important to conserve the water too.
Speaking of being in business for a long time, I know you didn't think that you were going to end up on the farm. Can you talk a little bit about that? What did you think you were going to do?
Well, I was not going to be in rural Arkansas for sure. I was going to be in a city somewhere. I had intentions of getting an accounting degree and then going to law school and being a lawyer, maybe even a politician. I thought I might want to be in Congress one day. What? I don't know about that. I think I'm a long way from that. There's still time. Right? And I think my problems might be easier to fix. I don't know.
So how did you end up here?
Well, I went to school at the University of Arkansas in Fayetteville, which is about a 4-hour drive from home, which is still far for going to college, but it seemed like a long way for me because it's in the Ozark Mountains, so it's totally different terrain, looks, totally different from where I grew up. And when I got there, I just kind of felt the pull back, to Northeast Arkansas and to my family and to the tradition that we had of, my family, some of the land in my family's family has been in our family for over 100 years. So just a lot of tradition there.
And now what about the next generation? What about your son?
Well, he's a senior in high school right now, and number one, I make him go to school, right? But he'd much rather be on the farm, learning about the farm, or hunting. He kind of likes hunting around here too.
All right, so I want to change it up a little bit, because one of the things I know you do, mentioned that you're also a bean farmer. And can I turn around right here, you think? These folks
Turn around in the airstrip. Go to the next one.
Okay.
Oh,
So I wanted to talk to you about Japan. Because you go to Japan at least once a year.
Right, once a year.
And I know that has really nothing to do with rice, even though Japan is an important rice customer. I know why you're going has nothing to do with that. So we'll leave that there. So what was it like? What was the first time you went to Japan? You've been now, how many times? You've been a bunch of times.
Probably 7 or 8 times.
7 or 8 times. Mm-hmm. So what was it like? The first time you went, what surprised you? What met your expectations? What did you...
Well, I knew there were going to be a lot of people, but there were even more people than I thought a lot of people were, right? Their customs and just the way it is in public is so different from here. On the trains, every seat can be full on the train. It's completely quiet. They don't talk on their cell phones in public, because they don't want to disturb one another. They're just very, very polite in public, and so I kind of like that. And then I get home and I'm like, oh, we should be quieter on our cell phones, but that's me. And I like the food. I enjoy the cuisine over there.
Now that you've been a bunch of times, like what's different now? What do you do differently now? Do you pack differently?
Well, I pack a lot less now than I used to.
What time of year do you go?
I usually go in February, and Tokyo is about the same latitude as Little Rock, Arkansas, and so our weather is about the same. So it's cool. It can be, pretty chilly and rainy and cold, or snowy, a little bit of snow sometimes, not often. But so I'm usually, we're bundled up. But one thing is that inside the buildings and on the trains, their heaters are really pumping. So I'm normally really cold-natured and would wear like a sweater under my suit. And over there I wear like a sleeveless tank under my suit coat because they had the heat going, which is something I was surprised about.
Right. And you've hosted people from Japan at your farm,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
And what's that like when visitors come to your farm?
Well, back probably 20 years ago, it was a lot different. I wasn't really included in the conversation. It was all male, and it typically, for the most part, still is all male. Which isn't unlike rice meetings either, I guess. But now that my generation is more in the management level and a lot of the companies that we deal with, I'm more of a peer to them, and they look to me to answer questions and things like that. It's very interesting. I've developed some friendships, over the years with some of the people that I've been able to work with, and it's really expanded my knowledge of just cultures and doing business. Not everybody does business like we do in the United States, so kind of mind-broadening, I guess, a little bit.
One of the common misperceptions that people may have is about like big ag, growing monocultures. What's something that somebody like that who has that impression of agriculture, a misimpression of agriculture, what is one of the things we need to tell them, talk to them about, explain to them about how we do things here, how you do things?
In Arkansas, 96% of the farms in Arkansas are family farms, whether those are rice farms or poultry farms or they're in forestry. So I would say that probably mirrors in a lot of other states, I would think, no matter what crops they're growing. So they're family farms, and economies of scale is what has happened. A combine is upwards of $300,000 plus a header to cut your crop with. A corn header is different than a rice header, so if you grow both crops, you're going to have two. And so you can't afford just that one piece of equipment without enough acreage of food, growing that food to be able to pay for it. So it's not that we necessarily choose to be larger, it's just the economy of scale forces us to be.
Well, this has been another episode of Ride with Rice TV. This episode with Jennifer James in Newport, Arkansas. Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us. We appreciate it.
Great. Thanks for stopping by.
All right. Thanks.